Hello, I'm Dr. Shantae, and welcome to the Hole in Your Heart podcast, where I help you fill the holes in your life by helping you find the hole in your heart. See what I did there? This is season 1 of the Hole in Your Heart podcast. Season 1 was filmed last year, and I was set to launch this podcast March 2024. But then life spectacularly happened. And so I had to put the podcast on the shelf and wait until this year until life was done lifing. What you're about to see is in a totally different studio. It has a totally different vibe, but the content is still important, and that's what I want you to focus on. So there are 6 episodes this season. Each episode is going to start with this exact video, so in the future feel free to skip it. But I can't wait for you guys to get into this content. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the other side. Hello, and welcome back to Hole in Your Heart podcast. I am Dr. Shantae, and Hole in Your Heart is the podcast that uses a trauma-informed care approach to help you find wholeness and happiness in your life and in your relationships. I'm Dr. Shantae, your host. Now, I recently posted a few months ago this video on Instagram about the difference between companionship and relationship, and there was a lot of response to this video. Take a look. I wanted to come in here and offer some clarification between companionship versus relationship, because believe it or not, there is a loneliness epidemic in this country. It is well documented. Google it. The Surgeon General has been sounding off the alarm that there is an epidemic of loneliness, isolation, relational hunger. It is a public health crisis. Look it up. And for a lot of people, the remedy for that is to get into a relationship, which is fine. But where people tend to get frustrated is lots of people who are looking for a relationship are coming in contact and connection with people who want companionship. Companionship is a +1. A good time, a few laughs, just somebody to fill the time. Let's go out, let's have some drinks, let's go to a movie, let's spend time in one another's presence. It's very low stakes. And companionship is embedded in relationship, but relationship is not embedded in companionship. For you to have a relationship requires emotional availability. It requires vulnerability. It requires accountability. It requires fidelity. Okay. It requires honesty and integrity. It requires truthful communication. It requires an investment of self. And so if you are looking for a relationship, make sure that you are not connecting with people who are solely interested in companionship. Make sure that you all are on the same page about what that means and what that looks like. And a lot of the response that I got from that video was it provided tremendous clarity. It provided a lot of clarity about what people really want. Do I really want companionship, something light, kind of easy, non-committal, low stakes, or do I really want that nitty-gritty relationship and all of the investment that is required? But today we're talking about when it's time to leave, right? When is it time to leave a relationship? And there's 3 components that I use to evaluate when it's time to go. Okay, so it's an exit strategy. I never do anything off the hip. I used to be like that. I used to shoot from the hip. I had an emotional response and I would just bang, okay, and just fire off. I'm an Aries, we tend to be like that. But as I have grown and I have matured, now I actually have a process that I use to evaluate when it's time to leave a relationship, a job, to sunset a friendship, or what have you. And it is three things. So we're going to be talking about values, effort, and time. I have my trusty notebook because I'm a college professor and this is how I roll. Yes, we have iPads and tablets, but I'm holding it down for the pen and paper brigade, right? For the journalers out there. So let's talk about values for a minute. When it is time to exit a relationship, it might be because you and the person you're with don't want the same type of relationship. Okay, because you place value on different things. And so you may value honesty, closeness, connection, conversation, and they may have a different set of values. They don't value those things. And so what that creates is disharmony, and it means that you're not really compatible, because as you are looking for fulfillment in the things that you value, this person's focus is completely someplace else. And so it's almost like the equivalent of you want to go to Seattle, Washington, and they want to go to South Beach, Florida. You're not going in the same direction. You don't value the same things. And sometimes when couples try to have conversations about, what's important and what they value and how that can be cultivated, if a person really doesn't value it, even though their behavior might change, okay, so they might change the behavior, but that's a real short-term fix, because ultimately it's just not important to them. They don't see it the same way that you see it. They don't value it in the same ways that you do. And so when someone doesn't have the same value system, even if the behavior changes in the short term, down the line it's going to create conflict because they just don't see it the same way. I remember having a conversation with a person, and I don't get too much into pop culture, but I was reading this article that showcased like the prenup, an excerpt of a prenup between Jeannie Mai and Jeezy. And it kind of broke down like this really comprehensive definition of what constituted as cheating, like, electronic correspondence and emotional connection and, FaceTiming and DMing, and in addition to the physical components. And I remember reading that definition, and the person that I was talking to was like, that's ridiculous, So they had a totally different definition of what constituted cheating. They thought it was really more about that physical component. And so if one person has a really comprehensive idea about what cheating is and the other person has a really narrow scope, even if the behavior, to say, okay, well, I won't do these things, ultimately, the value systems are just very different, and that can create discord down the line and set both people up. So one of the ways that you evaluate whether or not it's time to exit a relationship is, do we have different values? Are we pursuing different things in the relationship? And so if our viewpoints are going in these disparate directions and we can't reconcile them, then it may be time to exit the relationship. Another component is effort. So in the words of Rob Bass, it takes two to make a thing go right. If you are a millennial watching this and you don't know who Rob Bass is, my heart bleeds for you. Okay, go back and listen to that song, because it's a jam. But when we're talking about effort, it really does take both parties being willing to meaningfully engage in the work of cultivating a healthy relationship, a healthy connection, a healthy partnership. And I think a lot of times, especially if you've been in the relationship for a long time, we try to be Kobe Bryant's, or we try to be Michael Jordan's, or we try to be LeBron James's. And I can tell you, LeBron James and Kobe specifically, it's not that Mike won every championship, but I'm from Chicago and we did win quite a few championships with Michael Jordan several years in a row consecutively, but I digress. But sometimes we try to be like, the Kobe Bryant or the LeBron James, and because we're a superstar player and we've done all of our work and we've done our healing and, we're ready to give our all. And we think we can just put the team on our backs and just, carry us over to the finish line. But that doesn't work. Okay, many NBA teams have faltered with that type of thinking, that I can just, pick us both up and, and just kind of get us to the goal line, or, get us to the next step and the next level. And this is not to say that there won't be moments where each partner is giving less. I mean, because that's just the reality. People talk about 50-50 or 100 or 100. That's not reality. Sometimes somebody's given 80 and somebody's given 20 just because of where they are mentally, because of where they are at work, where they are physically. Their health may be in decline. Like sometimes there's definitely one person pulling more of the relationship than the other. But when that's happening over a consistent period of time, when that becomes the norm in the relationship, and then that consistent effort is not there, and that meaningful intention is not there, then that might be time to reevaluate that partnership and exit the relationship. And then the last thing I want to touch on is time. Sometimes things have just run their course. Sometimes, to everything there is a season, and sometimes the season has passed. It is okay to evolve. It is okay to grow. You are not, if you are in your 40s and you're watching this, you're not the same person you were in your 20s. If you are in your 30s watching this, you are not the same person that you were at 21. It's okay to grow, to evolve, and to change. And sometimes the connections that you make at one point in your development, at one point in your maturity, at one point in your growth, at one point in your healing, is very different than the connections that you need when you have expanded on that growth, when you have expanded on that maturity, when you have expanded on that healing. And so those connections are no longer compatible, because some people grow with you, and if they grow with you and evolve with you, that is a beautiful thing. But sometimes the person that you're with does not evolve. They have like arrested development. And so they're just kind of stuck at a certain point. And and they just kind of want to stay there. Okay. And you have moved on, you've grown, you have outgrown some of those dynamics. And so if the person that you're with is limited or capped, or the job that you're in is capped, and you've done all that you can do in that relationship, you've done all that you can do in that job, you've contributed all that you can contribute in that dynamic, it's okay to move on, and I think that sometimes when we're talking about breakups or the ending of a relationship or a friendship, we have been kind of conditioned to look for a villain, right? Like the bad guy, like, oh, this is the person that lied, this is the person that cheated, this is the person that, blew up the relationship or what have you. And sometimes it's not any of those things. Sometimes it's just over. Sometimes it's just over. And I remember, I think the movie was like Love Jones, where Nia Long said something to the effect that, we'll look back and all we have is all these years, and the longevity of a relationship is very different than the health of a relationship. Just because you've been together a long time doesn't mean that it's been a good time. And I think that too many people sacrifice their health and happiness and some really good years trying to get back to a place that you all have outgrown and evolved from. And so values, effort, time, all of those are legitimate reasons to exit a relationship that is not working. And so if you want companionship, we're having a different conversation. You don't need an exit strategy for companionship. Not to say that you just bounce, you don't just ghost, but companionship is lighter, and the emotional investments and entanglements are usually not in a light companionship type of arrangement as opposed to a relationship. And when you're talking about exiting a relationship, I think that these are three legitimate courses to consider when you are thinking about whether or not it's time for you to move on to another chapter or to another phase of your life. So that wraps us up for today. If you are enjoying this content, I certainly invite you to like, subscribe, to share this content, to engage with it in a meaningful way. If you would like to leave some comments about experiences that you've had in terms of exiting relationship, and I would love to read those and respond to them. But ultimately, the goal is for you to be healthier and happier, and I hope that you find the hole in your heart. Dr. Shantae, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this episode of the podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, so feel free to hop into the comments, give me your 2 cents. I read and respond to every single post. I can't wait to engage with you. If you like this podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, and always feel free to share.